The weather affects everything, from how we feel to how we live. But what's really going on above us? Each week on Atmospheric Insight, we dig deeper into the science of weather and the stories it shapes. This is Atmospheric Insight, where science meets the sky.
Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. I'm meteorologist Adam Epstein.
Meteorologist Riley O'Connor.
Riley, it's been a minute.
It has been.
Right, we're back in the saddle. Microphones still work. We're doing this thing.
Different background.
Right, yeah, you've got a different background. Me too. Mine's a little bit more boring, but we're going to try and change that in future episodes. Okay, so the hot topic, maybe the cold topic, I should say, of this week's forecast throughout the United States is a winter storm that's going to be cruising through the southern part of the U.S., and the ice that goes along with it. And that's what we're talking about for atmospheric impact to begin this episode. So this major winter storm's cut in half by the jet stream, right? On the north side of the jet, you have that very cold air, can support snow. Then on the south side of the jet, it's warmer. And right in between, it's a mix. And you have ice forecasted, a lot of freezing rain. Now, before we get into this, have you experienced freezing rain yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
It's terrible.
It's not fun at all.
A brief anecdote for myself. Yeah. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina. I remember this day very distinctly. Freezing rain. Didn't seem like too much of an issue. It was a little slippery outside. And I came up to this concrete staircase. I was walking outside. And the first step, foot goes from under me. And I fall on my bum.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a downslope. So I'm going boom, boom, boom. I'm trying to get up. But this is like 10 steps. And I think by like the third bump on my bum, I'm like, all right, hands up. It's a roller coaster.
Just go
now.
for the ride.
I'm accepting this. And then I got up from the bottom of the steps. I looked around. No one saw me. And I just hobbled away.
I think isn't that the automatic thing to do? Is like you want to look around and be like, did anyone see me do this? Did anyone?
Yeah. So what was your experience feeling? Or you have probably many.
Yeah, I've had lots. I mean, going to school in Indiana, living in the Midwest, we have a lot. And I think that's one of it's difficult to forecast freezing rain because it's just so in between, right? I mean, you have to have, warm air loft, you have to have the freezing right at the surface. So you have to constantly look at that. And there could be a fine line, it could be all snow several miles north and then you're in the freezing rain. It is just not fun to be in or predict because it really does cause damage, especially if you start to get into quarter of an inch to half of an inch and higher amounts, which they're forecasting with this system that's coming in. If you look how large it is, I'm really concerned about the power outages and how long the power outages could last if this, pans out, which it looks like it's going to.
Oh, no doubt. This is a logistical nightmare. We'll talk more about the impacts in a second. And aside from how devastating a large ice storm can be, it is eerily beautiful. As a meteorologist, you probably appreciate this similar to the way I do. When you see that accretion on a branch or a twig, and it has that rim of ice surrounding it, encasing it.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that.
It's very cool.
You can't reproduce that if you tried. Only nature does this kind of thing.
Right.
So obviously, if it's too much ice, it starts to drag the trees down, power lines down, and you run into your whole slew of problems. But if that doesn't happen, man, it is stunning, right?
It really is, yes. And I think it's it's when you're driving down the street and you see it on like tree branches, right? I think that is like one of the coolest things, even though the tree branches are sagging down, but still it is beautiful.
Right, it is. So let's talk about this ice forecast here. And this is alarming, okay? So in the latest model runs we were just looking at before the show, it's trended down a little bit towards Atlanta and South Carolina, which is positive, but still could be looking at 1 to 2 inches of ice. When you get, like you mentioned, above a half inch of ice, up to an inch, this could be devastating.
Yeah.
This could cripple areas. Not only is it very hard to drive or just walk outside, but power outages that could last weeks. I did this story when I was working in Maine on this huge ice storm that happened in the New Hampshire area. And this was like, at this point, 30, 40 years ago. The images that I saw and the little VHS video that I got to see from it, all the trees falling into the roadways. They had to have fire departments working 24 hours for like 5 days straight with chainsaws trying to cut through this ice and the trees to clear the roads so first responders to get where they needed to go. Right? It's just a massive issue.
Right. And this isn't like and the thing with this is you are dealing with an ice storm, right?
Mhm.
But the other part of this too is the cold air that's coming in. So if you are out of power and you don't have sufficient heat, we're talking wind chills, that are going to be well below zero in cases
Oh
for
yeah.
days.
Dangerous
Mhm.
situation, right? You're caught without power. People can't get to you, restore the power.
Yeah.
I mean, this one could be for the history books if
Mhm.
it pans out just close to how you see on your screen right now for this forecast.
Mhm.
Here's the ice accretion, and it's not accumulation for this, it's accretion. That's the word for it. Accumulation would be like how much hail accumulated on the ground, how much snow accumulated. This is how much builds up and freezes onto itself. So when we get into that zero point 0.5 plus, that's considered devastating. Widespread power outages, excessive tree damage. Your big favorite trees that you've been looking at all your life, they're at risk of coming down.
Mhm.
A half inch of accretion on power lines can add 500 pounds of weight. So, not to mention, it's hard to drive or walk, do anything yourself. Planes aren't taking off in this
Mhm.
either. They're getting weighed down by this ice. And I've heard that already airlines are offering free adjustments and cancellations of your flights because Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like this is going to be a mess,
Yes. Yeah, and it's and if you are planning to travel, you want to start working on it now,
right?
just because you don't want to be caught off guard and stuck.
Yeah, being stuck in something like this, especially without power, which could be truly weeks
Mhm.
in winter when it's cold, it's a scenario you want to try to avoid as best you can if possible. Meanwhile, back here at home in California, the Central Valley, we're back to our foggy stuff, right? All the same. But this time, I've noticed, and I thought I was a little crazy first, but I had some people verify that the fog looks a little bit darker, like grayish brown. And there's actually a good reason why. So that's what we're going to talk about in this week's Ask Adam. I'm just leaving work and I figured let's do an Ask Adam. Let's talk about not just this fog, but noticing it's a little bit darker than it has been recently. That's because of air pollution. A lot of pollutants are getting trapped up in this under a dome of high pressure, and the pattern just isn't changing. So you can probably see from the lights behind me over here, the haze back there. It's everywhere in the Central Valley right now, and it's particularly thick around Sacramento. So what's happening is every night that cold air is filling the valley. We're getting that fog to form. And also pollutants are getting trapped at the surface under what's called an inversion, with the colder air below the warmer air. Colder air has to stay where it is, and high pressure is above it, pushing down on everything. And there's no wind, no movement of the air, both horizontally or vertically. Something called mixing. Vertical air down to the surface can help clean the air out and improve air quality, but that's not happening either. Instead, the air is just still, so the pollutants accumulate each day, and each day you have bad air quality. Anytime the AQI gets over 150, I think twice about spending too much time outside. You might not feel like yourself, but it affects everyone differently. So keep an eye on the AQIs. Some good advice any time of the year, but especially when we have conditions like this.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
Riley,
I'm
I
over it.
I
I'm just gonna say I'm over it.
I'm over it too. It's been we've had our fill of
We've had our
fog.
fill.
The last week of November, the
Mhm.
first 2 weeks of December, barely saw the sun. Now we're back to this pattern, and the air
Mhm.
quality's taking a hit. I will say I'm not overall a fan of your iPhone's weather app, but it does a good job with a few things, and one of them is air quality. It's easily accessible, and it pulls from your nearest air quality monitor,
Mm.
so it's something reliable that you can check.
Mm.
And that's not really a forecast; it's happening right now, so you can use it for actual readings. And I've been checking this like almost obsessively. And there are times where like the whole day AQIs are over 150, and
Yeah.
that's considered unhealthy.
Yep.
And I feel it. I've been getting like some mild headaches, and I didn't know what it was. And I
Mhm.
realized, oh, I'm spending too much time breathing this air.
Right.
Some people, it's their sinuses, it's their throats. Some people are just getting sick easier
Yeah.
because your immune system's a little
Yeah.
suppressed. Have you been noticing it?
I have.
Yeah.
And it's even just being outside, people still have their fireplaces going, but it's a stench of yeah, just smoke, I would say, but,
Yeah.
a couple things that I've noticed, my daughter has been coughing more.
Hmm.
I've had a scratchy throat for the last, like, 3
There you
days,
go.
and I think that's exactly what it is, and just kinda clogged up, and, but, the thing is I think people still don't acknowledge it. They're like, I'll be okay, but
Yeah.
but you do have to take it seriously.
Right. You think you'll be fine. And if you're healthy and you don't have
Mhm.
issues, like maybe you'll notice it now that you think about it. There are some small things that are just slightly off,
Yep.
right? And it might be attributed to air quality. It could be something else, of course,
Mhm.
but this air quality definitely isn't helping. Today, good news. AQIs were like around 50. So
A little
that's a
better.
nice little surprise for us. Yeah. And I expect Saturday to be a nice day.
Yeah,
A little bit of a breeze, 10, 15 miles per hour could be enough to keep our AQIs pretty low.
we'll take it.
All right, we're back on the horse for atmospheric insight. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
And welcome back. I had the pleasure of talking with Palisades. We've been talking about the snowpack, right?
Mhm.
And even though we had a good couple storms that came through, we are seeing a little bit of a change now. We're in a dry spell. Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. But I talked with Patrick Lacey up at Palisades, and he gave me the latest view, which was beautiful, and what they're doing, and how the business is going up there. So check it out. Thanks for joining us today on Atmospheric Insight. Today I have Patrick Lacey, the public relations manager from Palisades, Tahoe, talking about the snow and the recent storms and what's going on up there. Thanks so much, Patrick, for joining me today.
No, thanks for having me. I mean, it has been an absolute paradise here at Palisades, Tahoe. Nice, sunny bluebird days, really consistent too. But it was a pretty hard start to the winter this season. But
Yeah.
that being said, it was did have a great Christmas miracle. That's what we're calling this storm. It really delivered. Right now, we're sitting at about 152 inches of the season. That is actually the exact amount that we had last season on this date exactly.
Mhm.
So we're pretty comparable from last season. But obviously, we're always praying for more snow. Especially, it's still pretty early season for us here at the resort. But it's gonna, still got a long ways to go. A lot of times we're skiing all the way up until May, June,
Mhm.
even July some years.
Take me back to talking about that Christmas miracle, right? Because I started in July here, and it was, summer, and I know that winter was coming up, and we can get hit with storms in November, in December, and thereafter. What was going through your head when it started off quiet and dry, and then we started getting slammed with the storms? Were you hopeful? And this has happened before, this Christmas miracle, right? So what was going through your head when these storms were coming through?
Yeah, so ultimately, whenever we did see a little bit storm on the radar during Christmas, we got really excited here. So we were staying very hopeful during that dry spell, and it was a consistent dry spell, really. We only had, 3 lifts open before Christmas. That being said, we have the whole entire mountain completely open now, but it does, we do get a little nervous by all means here in the ski industry. Our whole entire economy revolves around snow here within the Tahoe region. That being said, this storm absolutely did produce, and we're sitting pretty right now.
So you rely on this time of year for the business, especially during the holidays when people can come up and ski with that. So when you're talking about rounds of snow in the Sierra, so far this season, and when you have breaks like this, when we have some dry spells, take me through the snowmaking on the process of how you guys do it, how it works, how, when you turn the machines on. I'm interested to know that.
So there's really 3 big areas that we need to focus on when it comes to snowmaking. That's going to be obviously water, then it's going to be compressed air, and then what we really didn't get towards the beginning of the season is cold temperatures. That's why we weren't able to have nearly as much as terrain as we wanted to open because of those. It really started out pretty warm this season.
Right.
Now, we did have this storm. Then this last storm that came in our last week, it was a very cold storm. It was, you were skiing blower powder like you were skiing in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, right? So we don't get that very often here in the Sierras. It's very Sierra cement-esque. So that being said, just we're very fortunate and got lucky with these storm patterns.
Even though right now, say, for example, we are dealing with temperatures that are pretty warm, right? I mean, we're above freezing up there. Does that affect how does it affect the train at all, or the traffic, or how you plan for snowmaking?
Yeah, so really about how the weather really goes into play. It can't be too humid. It needs to be very dry for us to produce snow. It could be well below freezing, but if the
Mhm.
humidity is way high,
Mhm.
we call it the wet bulb temperature
Yep.
whenever it comes to snowmaking. So we want to it has to be absolutely perfect for us to snowmake. We want very dry climate as
Mhm.
well as just cold temperatures, really, really cold temperatures. But a lot of times, right now, in the month of really January and February, it'll get warm during the day and then
Mhm.
cooler at night. And
Right.
really, that's our big time to produce that snow.
Right. And even if you are going through, and we have, say that we have storms come through and it's a warm storm, and we may forecast rain for the area and it rains and doesn't snow, how does that affect the mountain, the snowpack, your planning? How does that work?
Yeah, so if you do get a little bit of rain, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, if there's a lot of rain, it can wash out the mountain. But if you get a little bit of rain, it creates a nice little layer,
Mhm.
and really that's what really prolongs our long season is because of that Sierra cement. It's wet, it can freeze, it can harden up, and can even make us go all the way until the 4th of July.
That's incredible. And I moved here. I lived in Southern California for about 10 years and then moved away. I was in the Midwest forecasting and then moved back to California. And I'm happy to be back. But I remember watching, years past where just record snowpack in the Sierra, and you were skiing through July, which is just crazy to see. Compare this year so far to years past that that you've been here and what you've seen.
Yeah, so really, Mother Nature is the beholder at that. It's really hard for me to answer that question, but this is a pretty comparable season to last year, right? Really, the past 2 years. 3 years ago was an absolutely insane season. Everything was buried here in Tahoe. Yeah,
I
that was
remember that.
that was our Janu buried season
Yeah.
too. All of it came all at once. But it really doesn't matter about the month that it falls. It just matters about that it's really prolonging our season as much as possible.
Mhm.
Obviously we really do like whenever it does snow in November and December. This year we didn't really get that.
Mhm.
That being said, it did come at the very tail end, right there at Christmas,
Yep.
and made it perfect for that holiday season.
Thanks so much, Patrick, for joining us today. And we will be talking to you again sometime in the near future.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
It was great to talk with him. He gave me some great information, invited me up to take the kids to ski. I'm gonna have to take advantage of that, even though I'm not a skier. But it's really good to, hear all of the logistics about it and how they're doing right now. It's just nice to hear the facts from him.
Right. And two things for me. One, they've got the base, which is what they need. They'll add a little bit of man made snow on top of it each night when it gets cold enough,
Mhm.
and they're happy.
Mhm.
Sure, they would like some more natural snow from Mother Nature. That would
Mhm.
make things easier, but they're doing fine. It's beautiful up there. Second thing is, you absolutely need to take him up on his offer. It is incredible. The views, even if
Yeah.
you don't ski, it's just such a gorgeous place.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we're going to come right back in 2 minutes. We're going to hear from Genevieve Melser. She's going to take us back out to the golf course. Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. So we've been talking about fog, we've been talking about ice, we've been talking about snow in the Sierra. Now it's time to talk golf. And Riley, if I recall correctly, not a golfer, right?
No, not really. No, I
Okay.
enjoy being out there, but I'm not good.
Yeah, it could be a fun time on
Yeah.
a nice day, but yeah, not a big golfer
No.
either. Let's hear about how weather is impacting the golf course.
I'm back at William Land Golf Course interviewing PGA General Manager Kirk David about how weather impacts everyday play at the golf course. How do windy days affect course setup and player performance?
Yeah, certainly wind is some of the toughest conditions for golfers to play in. Obviously, it affects the golf ball, and you have to adjust for that, or it just frankly just blows your golf ball offline. That's certainly a challenge. We get a lot of wind events in the springtime, when high pressure and low pressure coming in and out. We know a little bit about that part of the weather, and that's kind of why we get a ton of windy days in the springtime. As I mentioned, in the wintertime, it's a benefit because one, it blows the fog out of the valley. And two, it does dry the turf out. Just think of a blower dryer on your hair. It does help dry out the turf. So we like it in the wintertime, but it's definitely a challenge for the golfers.
Do you offer coaching tips for dealing with windy conditions?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, that's part of player development because everybody, once you get involved in the game, knows basically how far your clubs go, how far you hit the ball with each club. And so wind, either into the wind or downwind, affects that. And so that's actually a teaching thing that you can talk to golfers about. Generally speaking, the advice is for every 10 miles an hour of wind, that's about one club. Yeah, so you would, if you had a headwind into you 10 miles an hour and you normally hit this yardage with a 7-iron, you would change to a 6-iron. So one club for about every 10 miles an hour. A little quick anecdote, years ago, on a normal size flagstick, not the big thick ones, but the normal one, it takes about 17 miles an hour of wind to start bending the flagstick.
Does extreme heat affect tee times, maintenance, and player safety?
So heat affects all three of those things you mentioned: the golf course, player safety, and just how many people want to play. So typically people don't want to play in extreme heat. We are really good about making sure they take extra precaution, have their water. A lot of times now they have sun umbrellas. You may have seen those. So it's kind of a funny joke. We sell more umbrellas in the summertime than we do in the wintertime now because they're used for sun protection. We thankfully have a lot of trees out here, and so that does help people know to kind of get into shade and help trees. But listen, we're again an outdoor recreation business, and those extreme conditions hurt participation.
When wildfires are burning in our area, do air quality alerts impact scheduling?
It can. A couple of years ago, we had a really bad summer, and I remember about a week, the winds changed and it blew it from, there was a complex fire like East Bay Hills. I think actually that was kind of when the Napa burned, and our company went to a AQI policy where it went over that. We would tell people to leave the golf course, especially all of our junior program. We do a ton of kids camps and stuff out here, and so people on their own kind of would stay indoors, but we also created a policy. So absolutely, if we do get bad air quality days, it again affects people playing.
From heat waves to winter storms, being weather aware can make your game safer and maybe even help your score. A huge thanks to PGA General Manager Kirk David for having us out today and for sharing his expertise. Back to you guys.
Thank you, John Vieb, and some pro golfer insight.
Yeah,
there.
definitely.
17 miles per hour, and the flagpole
Yeah.
starts to bend a little bit.
I didn't
Who
know that.
knew?
See?
Yeah,
Learn something.
that is interesting. And then also the 10 mile per hour is changes your club from one to the other for distance.
That's why I'm not doing so well.
That's got to be it. That's the one reason.
If I knew that, I would be fine.
Next time we're going out, every hole is going to be a par or birdie for you, right?
Yes.
Easily. All right, Riley, it's been a pleasure to be back with you here in Atmospheric Insight, and I want to say thank you to everybody at home who tuned back in with us. We'll be back next week with more information about your weather locally and what's happening around the world. Riley, have anything else to say?
No, I don't think so.
Cool.
I think I'm good.
Sounds good, man. I'll see you later, everybody.